Welcome to More Than a Parent, a podcast exploring who we are and what we want outside of being a parent, so we can create an integrated lifestyle with impact both in and out of our homes. I'm Caz Gaddis, and I invite you to join me to be your more, live your and. I am so very stoked to welcome you to the first episode of More Than a Parent. I'm Caz, as you heard from the intro, and I am just super excited to see what evolves from this and what we evolve from as we go on this journey together through this podcast. I am on very limited sleep. I have a 17-day-old. His name is Quest, and I have a 19-month-old. Her name is Skylin. And between infant needs, newborn needs, right, of feeding every 2 to 3 hours, and then toddler needs, I am personally in need of more sleep. So we're going to go through this in a very semi-simple way, as simple as I can go right now, which is like the who, what, when, and where's, whys of this podcast, and how I really ultimately really want to serve you, really want to connect to you and empower you forward to being more than a parent. So let's start with who. Like, who am I? Why am I here? Why are you listening to me? I don't know why you're listening to me, but I can tell you a little bit about my who. So I live in Dallas. I've been here for about 10 years. My husband is a filmmaker. His name is Les, and he also has a podcast, FYI, in case anyone you know is into filmmaking. It's called Capturing Light, and it's really cool. He has some really awesome director of photographies coming on board there. I think I said that wrong. Director of photography professionals. There you go. We'll just say it like that. Anyways, I've been working alongside him over the last 9 years, and dabbled in video production with him. But so we live here in Dallas. We have a video production company and these 2 kiddos and some fur babies as well. So as far as where I'm from, what I identify with, which, by the way, I love connecting with people about where they're from and their cultures. I am half Dominican, half German. I'm originally from Queens, New York, from Corona, shout out specifically. And a couple things that I love that would be awesome too if we connect with in the future on is I love charcuterie boards, which, by the way, I did not know what a charcuterie board was until a couple years ago, but I always love them. Basically, it's meat and salami and breads and olives and good stuff. Of course, accompanied with wine, and chocolate makes the world go round. So I love those. I love dancing and creating. I love anything from brainstorming to, pinspirations. By the way, I did not say perspiration, said pinspiration, as in like inspirations from Pinterest. Yeah. Anyway, although I do, side note, and sorry, TMI, but I do man sweat sometimes when I dance. So anyways, moving forward. And I also love connection. So this is why we're here. This is why I'm here with you today is I love real, relatable, raw, deep conversations versus the surface level stuff. So I think that so much comes out when we can just all be human and appreciate that human experience that we're in. So anyway, that's my who. Hello. As far as my why this podcast is, it goes really deep. It goes really way back for me, way back. I was born in 1987, and yes, I know I'm starting there, but it started there as well. My parents had me in Dominican Republic. They're both entrepreneurs, and they still live there. They're separate, but they live on the same island, and the island seems to survive them, so that's exciting. So growing up, I was raised by my grandparents in Queens, and my parents, continued on with their business responsibilities. That, as a child, made me feel, regardless of the circumstances and the details that I'll spare us all from, because, of course, it gets muddled between what one, person says or the other. But the point of it all, and for this podcast, is that I felt that my parents chose business over me because, again, I was raised since 3 months old by my grandparents. At the end of the day, I know that everyone did the best that they could, and I am uber grateful for my grandparents and their sacrifice. But it was really rough. I literally remember there was this time I was around 7 or 8, and I ran out to the backyard that we had, and they had these Goodyear blimps that would pass by overhead, and they would capture the city, the neighborhoods, between Yankee games or something like that. I'm a little fuzzy on the details there, but I remember running out, and I remember waving my hands up and looking at the blimp and shouting, knowing that they couldn't hear me, but I was hoping that they could see me. Because deep down, in this weird way that is perfect because I was a kid and that's where I was at, I felt like I was adopted. I did not understand why I wasn't with my parents. I had issues connecting with why my family looked different than other people's families, right? Than other kids' families. I had two mid 70-year-old grandparents raising me. And again, they were super awesome. But I didn't have the activity and the engagement that I felt other kids were getting. And so that feeling of abandonment, of not belonging, and of hoping that apparently someone from watching the Goodyear blimp footage would realize that I was their kid and would come and scoop me up was, definitely just weird. But that's how hurt I was as a kid. And all of this that I just shared, I did not know how to put that into words back then. But what it did to me and what it's done for me is it made me realize I was living most of my life up to now in a duality. Literally up until 2017, that I felt like it was either a this or that. Either you could have kids or you could have the career or the success or the business that you're wanting, the impact that you're wanting. And guys, that is just some bull. Because I strongly believe, and I am always looking for examples of what is possible. And I am currently living what it is that I wanted to do and wanted to have, which is a mix of both. There is no rule that says one or the other. That was just a limiting belief that I was allowing myself to believe, right? Because of past experiences, but it wasn't necessarily based on reality. So that's a big freaking why as to this podcast, because I truly believe that you can be an awesome present parent and you can also be, do, and have all the things that are in your heart. There's no reason to have to limit yourself or feel limited. And on a side note, limitations are something that really irks me in a way that I love working on things that I feel limited by and helping others feel unlimited by those things as well that they're going through. So anyway, that's a big why that we're here today. Into that whole feeling limited at the time back in 2017, I was just about to turn 30, and my husband had asked me, every now and then, when we wanted to have kids, and he knew that I wasn't necessarily all 100% in for it, but, he said we could talk about it a few years later and kind of revisit it and such. So on my 30th birthday, my husband comes to me and he goes, "Hey, so, kids, like, let's do this. Let's have a kid this year." And I'm looking at him, I'm like, dude knows it's like my birthday, right? Like, how dare he on the day that I'm supposed to be, super selfish and all about me, talking about having a kid. It's my day. So anyway, so we had a conversation. We actually had an argument, but then we had a conversation around it, and we decided to go ahead and start trying to have kids. That same month, which was March of 2017, I started my journey into becoming a certified professional coach. And so I went through this first weekend intensive of my coaching program, and fear came up for me around having kids, and also challenges with trusting myself, trusting others, and so on. And so I was able to really dig into those pieces. And then funny, at the end of that month, I went to an ashram where the head yogi told me that I was going to have a kid soon. So needless to say, there was a lot of kid conversations. I was kind of super freaked out. And then I'm out of nowhere told by a yogi that I'm going to have a kid soon. So guess what? Within a month, I did. Not have the kid, but we conceived. That would be super progress, right? Super fast. So anyway, so that whole journey and the journey till now has a lot of nuggets that I want to share with you, and want to have other people join us and share their experiences and their nuggets as well. What has been one of the most beautiful experiences for me has been this connection to other moms. I've attracted this beautiful group of women who are also moms now, or they were becoming moms at the same time as I was, actually. And we were all in this human experience together. We were in the messy, the beautiful chaos of the becoming a mom, the becoming of a parent, stutter, right? Of becoming of a parent, but also there was like this magical unbecoming, and refiguring out who it is that we wanted to show up as and what our life would look like. And being able to connect to those moms and see them in their life, see them how they were in their businesses and just how they were showing up in general was so motivating to me. And I don't think that everyone has a chance to experience that. That's another reason for More Than a Parent is I want us to be able to tap onto each other and get empowerment, right? From listening, from hearing examples of others that are doing it, that are being it, because you're freaking worth it, right? Like there's no other because. It's because you're it and you're worth it. That's why we're here. I've learned a lot of different things, and the biggest thing that I wanted to share in this episode is that we're only limited by what we see as a limitation. There you go. Let me try that one more time. We're only limited by what we see as a limitation. So all these things that I had fears around, all these things that I had to work through, they were just obstacles that I myself believed in and created, or allowed myself to just focus on instead of seeing what else was possible. And so that has been a beautiful revelation to me, for lack of a better word, in just a couple hours of sleep. So go with me here. And so I wanted to share briefly just a couple of things that I'll talk about in future episodes more deeply and in ways that hopefully you can kind of pull from and take in for yourself too. But it's so interesting how our kids are so different, and also what we go through with each kid can be so different. So with Skylin, who's 19 months old, I had this crash course in surrender. Like surrender had never been in my vocabulary before. I did not care for it. I didn't even like the word. And then all of a sudden, it was just pure surrender. I had all these thoughts of everything I wanted to accomplish before she came into our lives, before she was born as well. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to have a certain goal set and accomplish for my business, like all these different things. And I was trying to push myself, and it was just a surrender to the season, to my body, the energy that I did or didn't have. So that was just really interesting in itself. And then the other part of Sky's birth and coming earthside that was gifted to me was the being able to learn about boundaries with other people, and keeping and kind of preserving my energy, and also that of Sky, who in the midst of it either was about to be born or after she was born. Boundaries was a big thing that I had never really had set for myself. I have always I've always struggled with being a people pleaser. And so starting to have these boundaries not only supported her, but in turn they supported and nurtured me. So that was really beautiful. With Quest, on the other hand, there was like a next level surrender and a whole new set of fears, right? Because it was having a second kid was a cadence disruptor for me. I had figured out, how to be this parent for one. And, then she was in daycare. So that was awesome. And then here comes, kid number two and more expenses, and then more having to figure and plan and orchestrate, right, around the house. And it left me feeling like, okay, well, what about what I want? What about what it is that I want to create and who I want to be in this world? How will that look different? How will I look different? How will I feel different with having two kids? So I'm in that journey right now. And it's been really cool to be able to honor those feelings and also honor these beings that are in my life and continue to honor what it is that I want to create here. And so that's what More Than a Parent is about as well. It's how do we do all the things that we want to, that we choose to, and, being present in those different areas. The other thing that Quest has taught me is expectations. So Sky's birth was like, 3 or 4 hours. It was in water and it was like just super, just chill. Quest, on the other hand, still a water birth as well, which was really awesome. But he totally took like 17 freaking hours, like like 5 times longer. And it was funny because hypnobirthing and meditation were a big part of the way that I gave birth. But with him, what kept on spiking up for me was expectations. And expectations can be super sneaky, and we'll talk about that in a whole other episode, right? Because there's just a lot there. But because of my expectations of what I had experienced with Sky's birth, I couldn't stay in the zone. I couldn't stay and just meditate and experience his birth the way that it was, because I kept on thinking, well, why isn't he here yet? Because I had these expectations of what the labor would be like. So anyway, and then the last thing with Quest that I thought was really cool and definitely noteworthy to mention as far as the evolution of me and how it supported me and what came up was creativity and risk. Like I had this energy of, what, the time is now, why wait? So I literally left my job and I was around 6 months pregnant. Which meant no insurance and no safety net, right? I was not necessarily, it wasn't a planned thing. So I wasn't set up for, like having a savings and all this other stuff in place. I just knew that I needed to birth my business and birth this podcast and everything together because the time was now. And I also knew that there was a timing with Sky being the only child for just a little bit longer. So I chose and I talked to my husband and we made the decision to go ahead and have me be home and be present for what was most important, which was Sky, and then time to have me have time for myself before becoming a parent of 2. So, part of all of this is based around limitations. Again, like nothing's a limitation unless you believe it is, or not everything is. You know what I mean? Okay. So anyway, so with that, I feel like part of my life's work is to not only continue to discover, uncover, and work through my own limitations, my own limiting beliefs, but I freaking love working with people and helping them go through and get to the other side of their own limitations or what they perceive as a limitation. I really believe that resilience and resourcefulness are one of the top values that we can have and activate in our lives, because you never know why things happen the way that they do. So, if I didn't have these limitations or these feelings of limitations in my life, we wouldn't be having this podcast right now, right? We wouldn't be having the conversations that we will have. So that was my really long why, but I wanted to share that. I felt like it was really important to let you know what was the catapult to get us here today. So as far as what this podcast is about, I have been a longtime fan of Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. And he said once on an episode, he talked about the baby effect. I'm not sure if you've heard about that. The baby effect has something to do with like once you're having a kid or once they're actually here, you tend to somehow focus and get more done faster because of the baby effect, right? Like, I guess you just have less time to dilly dally. I just wanted to say it like that because I think it's funny. But anyway, you have less time to just, chill and just be like, yeah, I'll just get this done later. Like, you're just like, no, like they're going to wake up in a little bit. This is a nap time empire. We're going to get it done right now. Right? Like the whole done is better than perfect it is part of the baby effect. And so what this podcast is about is how are people making it happen? What's working for me, what's working for other people, and what's not working, but maybe it works for you. How do we help you in getting your own baby effect and getting what you want to be, do, and have out there and feel it? The other reason for the what of this podcast, so I interviewed a lot of moms, and we had about an hour and a half sit down related to what it meant to them to be more than a parent, and what challenges they were having, and what they're aspiring to have and to feel like with having kids, and just the struggles. Like, it's freaking hard sometimes, having an idea of what you want, but then, being pulled in different directions because of what their needs are, and how much they truly are needing us in this moment, and being able to ebb and flow between that. So I interviewed these moms, and, one thing that came up was they really wanted to create their purpose or find their purpose because they didn't want to have to wait till their kids were 5, 6, or 8 years old to start really living who they are, and what's in them to come out and to become, right? And I mean, some people obviously, they kind of put themselves aside, their identity aside, and what they want to create in this world until their kids are out of the house, right, and off to college. And that whole empty nester piece comes into place. And it's like, why do we have to wait? There's no need to wait unless you choose that, but you can totally start working on those things now. That is the what of this podcast, because you're worth it. And you can do it, you can be it, all those things now. It's just a matter of time and just getting started. So that's why we're here. Period. Like Medea would say. But anyway, so the last thing I wanted to share about the what of this podcast is that this is not a parenting podcast. However, parenting is woven into it. The way that we are able to be present and work with our kids and our family in order to also support what it is that we're wanting to create is really important, right? Like, you can't have one without the other, at least in my opinion. And you want to be a transparent, well, let me put it like that, like this. I don't know what you want, but I know that for me, I want to be transparent and be who I am in all the areas of my life. So in order for me to really create and be all these things that I want to be outside of my home, I want to make sure that in my home, I'm being that same person and I'm supporting my family in the same way I want to support those outside of my home. I want to have impact in and outside of my house. And that's also something that came up for those that I interviewed. So that's what this podcast will also address is how do we be and do all these things and feel like not necessarily balance, because that, it's kind of a myth. And it's really, to me, about integration, having a certain intention and then having that integrated into the areas of your life will give you that impact that you're wanting to have and to be. So, with that being said, some general topics that you're going to hear about is about self-awareness, really diving in and digging into who it is that we are and that we're being, so that we can continue to develop into like our best selves. But also, guys, ladies, it is so important to look at our self-compassion, because holy smokes, for not, cursing on here yet, may happen sometimes, whatever. But anyway, self-compassion is such a thing that I think I myself can do a lot more with. And I feel as moms, we have compassion with everyone else and sometimes not ourselves. So as we're in this journey together, please love yourself and give yourself grace. Like, man, you are thinking about so many different things at once, and your mind is like this most amazing computer. And so, as you're working through all these things, and certain things may slip, or you may have to choose one thing over the other in the moment, give yourself compassion, grace, flexibility. Know that you're super supported by the universe, by God, and that like you got this, you're doing it, you're being it. It's not a matter of black or white, like it's not just you are doing it or you're not doing it. Like just go with your being it and you're in flow, because parenthood is a flow, man. um And the last piece is self-commitment. So I know for myself, I've observed that discipline can be a super challenge when it comes to things that I want to do because of what everyone else needs of me in my house, or outside of my house when I had my job. And so self-commitment is looking at what it is that you want to have and committing to yourself. So the discipline comes in later, and the discipline is like kind of more of like, okay, I'm doing the things, but the commitment is that fire that keeps you going, regardless if, one day becomes a skip day for something that you wanted to do, or it just took a little bit longer. Just continue to have and to remember that commitment you have to yourself, have that compassion for flexibility and that awareness. And like you'll totally continue on this journey, and you'll start seeing the fruits of what it is that you're working on for yourself. You're perfect, and everything is perfect in the way that it's creating itself. So when and where of this podcast? Well, here we are. So when is here, where is here, I mean. And then the when is weekly. We will be having this podcast weekly. And as far as values that are going to be, that I hope and that my intentions are set forth for you to experience and for you to connect to through this podcast, is resilience and resourcefulness, humor, because as you heard, I'm kind of, I'm silly. The value around family and transparency, as well as freedom. And that freedom can mean whatever it means to you, whether that's having a business or, choosing your hours in your career, or whatever impact you want to make, having the freedom and the power of choice to choose those things. So why join us? What are the expectations for this podcast? And this is the last segment, so get excited. Woo woo. We're almost done with episode number 1. And I'm totally, by the way, recording this during nap time at my house. So I have like baby monitors around me, and the world is great. So anyway, why join us? We're going to have some amazing people that we're going to be interviewing that are parents that they're nurturing themselves first. And in turn, they're being able to nurture their families and then the greater community, right? The greater globe around them. We'll be talking about what's working and what's not working so much. But the what's not working so much for them may work for you. So it's going to be really fun to explore those different avenues with these different people. And they're going to be moms, parents from different walks of life, different expertises in education. I don't know if expertises is a word, but it is now. And then again, this is just an example. I want this podcast to be an example for you of what's possible, and that you're able to know that it's possible for you, right? It's not just like, oh, that's cool that she was able to do that or whatever. It's like, man, like this is possible for me too. So that's my hope for you. The last piece is community. A friend of mine at one of my workshops talked about community being like common unity. And I thought that was beautiful, because I want us to have common unity together about, all the things that are required in order for us to be more than a parent, and being able to support each other in this life journey. This experience is a very human experience, as we are also raising humans. And so with that being said, I would love for you to join a new common unity, a new community that I've created for us. And it's morethan-a-parent.mn.co. So that's more than a parent, all spelled out, M as in Mary, N as in Nancy.co, C-O. So thank you for joining me on our first ever episode. I am so grateful for who it is that you are and for your time invested into hearing what is to come here. And I really hope that you stick around. I hope that you share with me, people that you want to have interviewed, things that you want to learn and grow and dive into more, because this space is a totally co-created space. I don't have any agenda besides coming to support you and also being able to empower you and also be empowered by you, because you're freaking awesome. Thanks for listening to this episode of More Than a Parent. To be your more, live your and. Continue the conversation with us and connect at morethan-a-parent.mn.co.